Hello, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, I'm Dr. Aliyu Waziri. Um, Environment, lots of people, different tribes, different ethnicity and religion. I grew up where there is a specific set of people in an environment where people from my own side, or rather people from the north, are being looked at as maybe educationally backwards, mostly people who are on the streets as destitute, begging, and things like that. But the good thing about this is it didn't really stop anything. It only motivated me to do more. And I found myself becoming a medical doctor. Still in the process of being a medical doctor, there are issues and things that came up. And there are lots of friends I came across. And part of these people I met, some childhood friends, people like Fatima Umar, who is a non-sickle cell patient, and her sister Muna. Unfortunately, Muna is no longer with us. She is late. She died at the age of 12. Fatima was so inspirational in my thinking about what sickle cell is, because she is a sickle cell patient. And at every point in time, she tries to ask questions. What are the causes of this? What causes this? What causes that? And it's part of the things that stimulated my interest to come into the field of hematology. I came to the field of hematology and I met some set of people. Same characteristics like her, but however, she being fortunate, being from an affluent family, but however, the people I came across are people who are indigent and majority of the time have to struggle to make ends meet or being able to even cater for themselves. And the major thing or challenges they usually come with is the issue of pain. So this pain that they have could be acute, something that happens immediately, or a chronic thing that they can have for a long time. It could be from just stress, from emotional disturbances, and other things like that. They could trigger this acute pain or crisis they have. A simple point mutation, a simple change in the base pair, where you're supposed to have A, you have a T, and the protein that is produced is valine instead of glutamic acid. That is what caused the problem. It's not the spiritual thing. It is a problem that is here with us. We have more than 20 to 25 million people having this disease condition. And out of these 20 to 25, 10 to 15, and in some instances they will say 12 to 15 million people are found in Africa. And 90% of this population is found here in Nigeria with us. Still looking at it, more than 300,000 people or babies are given birth to with sickle cell disease. And it's estimated that by the year 2050, this number will rise to more than 400,000. In Nigeria here, we have more than half of that population, which is 150,000 people having that disease condition here with us. The Zaria experience. For those of us who are familiar with Zaria and who are familiar with Banzazo, if you've been there, you realize they also have a lot of patients that have this condition. Based on our documentation, we have between 20 to 22,000 people who have been registered to have sickle cell to have sickle cell disease and taking treatment in that specific facility. This is an iceberg. And by iceberg phenomenon, it simply means what you're just seeing is the tip of the iceberg. Majority of the people, and they've not been able to access this healthcare. So like I said, it's more of a genetic problem. What appears to be a very abnormality affecting just the red blood cell, which is the hemoglobin within the red cell, now transforms into something more complicated. Usually, we have the red blood cell, which is biconcave in shape and easily mobile and can serve through the blood vessels. But however, in individuals that have sickle cell anemia, these cells become very rigid and assume the shape of a sickle. And by assuming that shape, they find it very difficult to move through the blood vessels, and they occlude the blood vessels, thereby leading to pain in these individuals. So at the time, people were thinking that, okay, children are dying before the age of 5, etc. It also translates to the time where the manifestation of these disease conditions starts happening. These coincide with 6 months of age. And by 6 months of age, there tends to be like, you have more of reduced number of what we call the fetal hemoglobin, which tends to give a protective advantage. So the abnormal S hemoglobin becomes very much. And as it becomes very much, they start to become, the cells become sickle, they block blood vessels, and they lead to pain. So we see children having painful hand and foot swellings. It's not just limited to the hand and foot swelling. Even in elderly people or people who have grown up, they tend to have paleness of the body, tiredness. Sometimes they can even have syncopal attacks. The pain in sickle cell patients is so severe, it's excruciating, that if you ask a woman who has given birth before and who is a known sickle, she will tell you she would rather prefer to go through the labor pain than go through the pain of sickle cell crisis. If you ask the males, they will tell you the pain of the sickle cell patient is like you taking a saw and cutting deep down into the bone. And you can imagine how painful these episodes are for this specific set of people. In addition to all these I mentioned, so many other things can happen in the human body. They can have stroke, they can have kidney problems, they can have all sorts of complications that you think of. When you now put all these things at the back of your mind, you've seen that, okay, this is an individual who is already suffering. Then here comes the issue of stigmatization. People look at them and call them sicklers. People call them lazy. People often look at them as to see or to interact with a patient in Zaria City, that she was going to kill herself, and had to talk to her over and over again, and were able to pacify her. That's for stigmatization. So the disease entity is a lifelong problem. They will have that problem for a very long time, and they have to struggle. They need to see so many specialists. And as they are trying to see the specialists, they will also spend more money. Here, based on the study that was conducted in Lagos, it is estimated that an individual will spend 50,000 naira per admission. And you can imagine you're going in and out of the hospital more than 4 times in a year, more than 5 times, some 10 times in a year. It is a financial burden on the family. It consumes even the time the family is supposed to put into meaningful activities. In the midst of all this, when people like us with the passion and compassion to look at sickle cell patients and find a lasting solution, Sophia, the late Sophia, came up with an idea which unfortunately she didn't come to see it to fruition. Unfortunately, she died before then. But before she died, she put pen to paper, came up with an architecture, a structural framework of what she intended to do. And this gave birth to Sophia Sickle Cell Foundation in Zaria here. And the first unveiling of this foundation was on World Sickle Cell Day in 2015. We decided to put our strength together, and we also decided to come up with some other foundations so that we'll be able to cater for this specific set of people. Even the sickle cell warriors, those that have the disease or those that have the condition, also came together to look for ways of solving their own problems. They know their challenges and they know what to do, and they decide to put themselves together and come up with something very meaningful. So part of the thematic areas that we decided to look at was the issue of blood, because that's their major problem. And most of the time, they have recurrent anemia and they will need regular transfusions. And we decided to go out to the community, sometimes on campuses, sometimes in the communities, to make sure people make a sacrifice from the little that they have. Blood is very sacrificial. Blood is something you cannot buy. So even if we meet you, we tell you to give us, is really something you're doing to save humanity. And the interesting thing, the women were even the ones that showed more empathy. They are the ones even donating the blood more. And I really appreciate that effort. A round of applause. So, the other thematic areas is enlightenment, which we carried out both in secondary schools and tertiary institutions. Then, we know what the major problem is, finances. And we know that majority of the hospital bills that we pay is out-of-pocket spending. People pay from their pocket. And how many people have that money to pay? Very few people. So, only an infinitesimal percentage of people, again, are into the NHIS. That's insurance scheme. So it's a problem that concerns all of us. We cannot assume the problem does not exist. And one of the major problems is we tend to have children who are dropouts, especially if they are sickle. Majority of time, when the school attendance is punctuated by crisis or things like that, they tend to leave school. They become dropout in some of the instances. What are we doing to curtail this? Increased rate of divorce. This is something we've seen commonly. People who meet us will tell us, oh, I'm okay, I'm going to marry this person. She's sickle, I know she's sickle. But after the marriage, he will not be able to really cope. Sometimes it's when the pregnancy comes, then the problem comes. The crisis becomes very much more than they should be. Or we might decide to say, oh, he is AS, I'm AS. Oh, damn the consequences, we're going to marry. And I keep telling people, don't fall in love, but walk in love. Drug abuse is one of the major problems again, because they have pains. And because of these pains that they have, they will be forced to look for analgesics to take. And some of these analgesics can be so addictive. So we are now battling another problem, which is drug abuse, in addition to divorce rate, school dropping out, and even single parenthood. You can imagine, I have a patient who delivered triplets. Unfortunately, she is sickle, and she is now divorced. She's no longer with the husband. And you begin to wonder, how is she going to cope? Because when these things happen, the husband usually withdraws to his own cocoon and completely forgets the family, and which is very, very unfortunate. So, what is the way out? We need collaboration. And we know the road to this collaboration is usually muddy, is murky, is tortuous. People will come with different interests. And as we come with different interests and things we want to achieve, we should at least try to put one thing at the back of our mind, which is that person always having that pain, the chronic pain, who is the sickle cell patient. And if we're able to do that, we'll go a long way. Premarital screening, that's what we always advocate. We say, okay, no, before we get married, let's try and do this premarital screening. Let's know what our status are. However, I tend to differ a little bit. I don't say premarital, but I would rather prefer we start the counseling right from secondary schools before even people go into relationship that will lead to marriage. And that's why nearly all our communications, nearly all our enlightenment are in secondary schools. So, but we still take it to those in tertiary institutions, and we also offer free genotype testing for them. Prenatal diagnosis is an option for those who are ASAS and they feel they are okay with it. They can go into marriage. However, it comes with its own complications. Newborn screening is the best. And if you talk about newborn screening, you'll be able to make your diagnosis even from birth. And you now say, okay, this person has this, and you'll be able to do, you take the right decision right from the word go. You can start your therapy, you can initiate anything, even at that point. Legislation. That's one thing that majority or some of the states have done. But how far have we gone in our legislative rules? You put the laws, but how far have you gone to take it to the latter, implementation? And sometimes if you say you're going to enforce it, it becomes as if you are infringing on the right of that individual. And that's why screening still remains the best. Collaborations, governmental, non-governmental, private organizations, and things like that. And it's with this collaboration, we've been able to meet very big pharmaceutical companies, very big non-governmental organizations, and we're able to do a lot. I know we'll start thinking, what can we really do? And I've given us what we should do as individuals. As individuals, we should try to minimize stigmatization in this group of people. We should try as much as possible to assist them. I know you will call them sicklers, but I would rather call them warriors because they fight a battle. Thank you so much.